That looks good.
Yes, it's showing up for me.
Looks good, Justin.
All right. Just give me one moment. Okay. Okay, I'm good now. Recording, we're good?
We're good.
All right, so hey everyone, my name's Justin Mora. I'm 19 years old, and I'm actually a WHSAD alumni class of 2019. And I'm here to talk a bit about my major, since it relates very closely to what you guys are doing, and about, well, more so my job, because the only reason I got the job was actually through the things that I did at WHSAD. So just to get started, I am in City Tech. I'm sure most of you guys know what City Tech is. I'm there for communications design, but I started out originally in architecture. But as I was transitioning through, the whole COVID thing happened, I was able to snag a job. And right now I work as a steel detailer for a private company. I want to get into more. So why I'm talking about these two specific things. They seem so far apart to some. But in reality, the only reason I got my job was because when I went to school, I had to take the Autocad certification test. And, well, that was enough for the company to take me in as an apprentice. So, sorry. So it's very much so that the Autocad, or whatever you guys are using, I'm not sure if you guys are using something else, it's very important that you hone those skills, even if you're not going to end up doing what you think you're going to do, because it'll help in every single way that you can imagine. So let me just go over it. Communication design, to put it easily, and to quote the Shillington School of Graphic Design, is the responsibility of communication design is to develop the relationship between the viewer and visuals. Before they know what the visuals look like, a communication designer will consider the message they want to communicate and to strategically engage the viewer. So this is more so graphic design than it is anything else, because in reality, when you design something, you want to convey a message. You want to tell the viewer, the reader, how a product works, what it'll do for them, and in the end, why they should have it. That's more so about communication design. I could talk a little bit more about it during questions because I just got into the major, so I can't provide you as much as I would like to, but we'll get to that soon. But continuing on, I work as a steel detailer, like I said, which is basically, if you could see the projected screen, I make structural drawings for buildings. This building you're seeing right here is actually a 10-story building, and I made it in a span of about a week, and I had to make these drawings for a structural engineer. Structural engineers are key because they are the three pillars of what it takes to make a building, that being the HVAC, the architect, and the structural. So I didn't actually know that this was a job that one can just easily get into if they really do put in the training and the hours. But I just want to open your eyes, because architecture is not just one thing. I'm sure Cody has probably told you about it many times before. It's a more so blanketing term. It sort of holds so many more jobs that some people are not even open or willing to look into because it's too much sometimes. And I understand that. But it's very easy if you have your architecture background to just move into those fields, because in reality, all design is practically the same. You're just trying to show an image using whatever you can, be it 3D modeling or 2D modeling, to have an end goal of making something. So let me just get into this job more, actually. For this job, was actually my first big job that I had. Before this, I was designing like 1 to 2 story buildings, the stairs, railings, that sort of stuff. So the reason I'm saying this is because for me, I'm actually very lucky. But for me, that AutoCAD certification meant to the company so much more than it did to me at the time. I honestly thought the AutoCAD certification wouldn't even get me anything. Like, just having that was not enough. Or let's say, like, I just didn't think it'd be too important. But looking back on it, it's extremely important, even just for any type of design. So, I understand online learning is a little difficult at many points and all that, but I'm sure if you all struggle through, you all can push through, get to college, and do the things that make you happy. But for the most part, never take for granted what you're learning here, because this will take you farther than anything in the future. So mostly my job, I'll get into it. You can see here, you can see here that it's basically, I'm just making floor plans, and that goes out to the city. They approve it, and we start building it. We are the first people to do it, and then the HVAC people come in after the after the interior, the people who do the interior finish, and then from there, the architect oversees the entire process, and then the building gets made in however many years it would take, depending on how large it is, and yeah, a building's erected. But it's a little more complicated than that, but I just want to keep it simple because I don't want to overcomplicate things with the terminology and all that. But I'm sure you all understand. More or less, I just want to have you guys take this as a message, but you guys are at the peak of your life right now. You have to take all this information, all these opportunities, and use it to your best ability to get further in life. And everyone here can do it. It's not a matter of anything other than wanting to go further. And I think you all should just take that to heart. I was a kid like you once. I mean, I still feel like a kid. I'm only 19. I've had this job for about 8 months. So anyone could do it. But that sort of rounds it out. I more so want to answer people's questions because it's more, I have to explain it to you if you ask me a question. Because I don't know what you guys want to see. But if you tell me, it helps me out, and I can explain everything you want. Chat. Any questions?
Yes, Megan Golden raised her hand, and so Gilbert Bueno.
What software did you use for this besides AutoCAD?
Well, this specific software actually is a software called Tekla. It's the industry standard. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but it's basically specializing in steel and steel construction for all types of countries. So that's the program. But originally, when I got into the job, I used Advanced Steel by Autodesk, which is sort of like AutoCAD, but with steel aspects, 3D modeling.
Thank you.
Gilbert Bueno.
Hi. I wanted to know, well, what were your future hopes, either in this job or your career in general?
Well, my future hopes were, I originally wanted to be an architect. I said this. But as I was going through college, I kind of realized that the architecture aspect of it was sort of not like my thing. But instead, I wanted to do something more design oriented. And it may contradict with what I do with my job, but actually, the thing I output most in drawings is actually drawings of beams. I'm pretty sure we all know what a beam is, right? Yeah, so I just make like the holes, I put all the measurements, and it's basically easy. It's easy work.
All right, thank you.
And you have Savi.
Hi. So I know you were talking briefly about like there are other types of people that work on a building. Like how many people would you say like it would have to like? Can you go more in depth of like the people that like have to approve of it? Like not really approve, but like also contribute to like the floor plans, like HVAC and like electrical.
Yeah, sure. So in reality, HVAC and electrical are two separate things in terms of plans. But what goes into it is an architect and the client, they work together first to get the overall design or knock out any kinks that they want out the building. They take that main architecture plan and they turn it into three separate plans. They turn it into the structural plan, the architectural plan, which is the floor plans, you all know, and the HVAC plans. From there, every one of those fields has a drawer. That would be me. For steel, it'd be steel detailing. For HVAC, I'm not sure what it is, but I have seen HVAC drawings, and those people don't actually do the measurements. They have an engineer for that certain thing to make the adjustments. But that's more so how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Dimitri Brown asked a question in chat, so if you'd like to mute Dimitri.
Yeah, so City Tech was one of the colleges I applied for that architectural technology program. Can you describe your experience with this program?
Yeah, sure. So when I went in, I did actually 2 semesters of architecture. And architecture in college is a very different thing compared to now. Of course, you do floor plans and everything, but you start reading texts and learning about different principles about architecture. On your first semester, you do basic math, of course, and you more or less go over what is architecture. You then move on to hand drawing. I have done a hand-drawn section cut, I think, and an elevation for City Hall. It is quite difficult, but it was very fun. I'll tell you that. They don't skimp out on being like very challenging, but it's a good kind of challenging. I only left because it didn't work out with how I currently wanted to go in life, but that's more so how it is. I see someone else ask a question. What do you think of the first part reading?
Fink had asked a question in the chat.
Yeah, I'm seeing them. I'll answer you. So, I think the hardest part of these drawings, honestly, is the stamina you need to do this, because you have to make the model and you have to make all these different kinds of connections, change all the measurements in the model, and then you export it as drawings, and then sometimes you have to really change up a drawing depending on what the engineer, wants from you. That's pretty much it. Okay, so about the COVID question, we all know I think doing meets like this, it's good, but one doesn't really learn as much as they would if they were in person, hands-on with like books or texts or whatever they're doing. And, it's more so that being inside for me, like most people, is terrible. I want to go outside so bad. So I just sort of, I sort of had to deal with it for a while, but I just couldn't do it at one point. See, challenge about college. So the only challenging thing about college is really having the mindset for wanting to go further. So it's more so staying on a path. College itself is actually quite easy compared to what I was basically scared into believing. But, if one has a good amount of resolve, they can get through it, no problem. Okay, so to answer Maya, after high school, the only real thing that's hard to get off your feet from is having to do with all the paperwork. It's really all the paperwork of having to get in, like with your financial aid and everything, and having to redo it every 2 semesters. So that's really the only like hard thing. But college for me is very simple. It's honestly much more simple than high school. You get to choose your own classes. You get to sort of dictate where you want to go and when you have to take those classes. Okay. So far, let me think. AutoCAD was a big one at the start, but I phased out of that to move on to Advanced Steel. And for just my work in general now, we use Tekla. And well, for my major, I'm actually supposed to learn more about Photoshop, but I don't have much about Photoshop yet. Yeah, those are the programs. How was your job? Yeah. So I'll be quite honest. It wasn't an interview per se. I sort of had a talk with the management, but it wasn't like a one-on-one interview. It was they were looking for someone, and I sort of mentioned it in passing. And they needed someone, so they asked me if I was willing to take the training and that if I could like pay it off over time and just like sort of make their investment. It's sort of they invested in me, I'd say. It's other questions?
No, I think that's it for now, but people will probably have some more questions a little later.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I have a question before we transition to something else.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if you actually gotten. I don't know how long Cody's actually been there. Maybe he did work with you. He most likely did if he was still there, or if he was there when you were around. If he was around, or if he wasn't, it was just like a normal architecture teacher. Did they have you try and use 3ds Max? Like try and get you into like those other programs just to make sure that you were at least semi-conscious of every single like potential program you could be going into, because that's what he's having me do now, and I just want to know if it's like good that if I'm doing it, or should I be focusing more on just AutoCAD?
Oh, that's a great question, actually. Well, Codio didn't so much as like make me or tell me about programs. I actually learned in freshman year from Mr. Rodriguez because he told me about Rhino, and he actually gave me a booklet for it, and I still have it. And well, Codio tried to get me to Co-op Tech. I'm not sure if that's still an option for you guys now, but
Yeah.
yeah, he told me about those kinds of things. We kind of had to like he nudged us in a sense, you know. So that's all I can tell you.
The nudging for you is more like a push now.
Justin, I wanted first of all I want to say thank you for such a great and inspiring presentation. I do have a question, and it involves the software that you use for to pretty much draw up your steel beams and your structural components. How do you coordinate this software with I'm sure other softwares that other architects use, such as Revit and AutoCAD? What is the transition between those two, and how do you coordinate those drawings with architects?
Okay, easy. Yeah. So the main thing about Tekla is that it's the industry standard, so it works well with almost everything. You can export things to AutoCAD. You can export them to Revit. You can take your 3D models and actually render it through. I forgot what the Autodesk program that does renderings. But you can do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can take everything you've done and you can export it out to whatever program is more so the standard. It's really not that hard of a process, but as for doing it, like my workflow, it's basically the same. Just it's very different controls, of course, but you're just doing the same. You're placing a beam down, you're placing lines, you're connecting things. It's exactly like AutoCAD. in a
And
sense.
is it 2D based like line work or is it parametric?
It's parametric.
Okay, gotcha. So so parametric is pretty much like building components that you place and you specify a distance and have its own properties.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you take all of that in 3D and you use it for all those programs, Revit.
Right.
I think you can also 3D Max, and I'm not sure any of the other programs, but you can also export it to different kind of I think they call it like geothermal type programs where you can actually work on
the physical properties of the actual steel.
Yes,
right?
yes.
How heating components and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you.
I answered. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
majoring in architecture is kind of stressful. When I did it, I thought it was pretty fun. But halfway through my building technology class, it did start to get like really ramped up in challenge. So it's more so it gets stressful as you go because you kind of move from 2D to actual model making with like wood sticks and stuff, and you move on to actual programs that like like AutoCAD, Revit, and all that kind of stuff. So you're sort of going in progression, and of course, it always gets harder as you go to the end. Got a question from Dimitri. How long would it take for me to use Tekla? So before Tekla, I have to say this because I already had like a month or two of doing steel detailing. But for me, Tekla, I picked it up in about 2 weeks, since it was basically the same thing. They're both two programs that you use for steel detailing. So I just had to learn the controls over 2 weeks, and then I started to make models, and I started to get more comfortable. And right now, I've only been using Tekla for 3 months, 3 or 4 months.
Can you put the name of the app in the chat so I can check it out?
I got you, right?
Okay, thank you.
It's yeah. Any more questions?
I'll ask a question. So you're in college now. You're working. You have a job. So my question for you would be like, what advice can you give all of us on how to balance college, work, and our personal lives?
Oh, okay. So definitely focus more on your personal life and college if the job you're ending up in is not the one you want to stay in. But if it's a job you want to stay in and you have the opportunity to do so, definitely take your time with college.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So what you're showing right now is something you made in Tekla, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How long did it take you to make something like that? Say, like, if you just wanted to like freehand, how long do you think it would take?
See, the thing is, Tekla's not really like AutoCAD where you can freehand something. You kind of have to have a certain like beam layout from a drawing. But I know the drawing took me to finish about like a week and a half, and the drawings themselves only took a couple days. I can show you that these drawings individually, these ones under the 3D, they all took about 5 hours each to fully make, so that the structural engineer can come back with 0 changes.
Oh wow!
But of course, you have all day to do them, so it sort of works out.
And then that's just like, I could only imagine that it takes that long, especially because you're trying to keep up with like certain standards and everything.
Well, yeah, we have to keep up with standard connections and standard beam types. But the drawings are made automatically, actually. You just have to change around the layout of most things. You have to change around the look of things. Because the software actually has a really great drawing, like automatic drawing function. But for some drawings, since some things can be very specialized, it'll take more time. But it definitely comes out looking great. Like really clean, fine lines, crisp.
Okay. And if you were to like export this, if you were to export this, would it export as a 3D model or as a wireframe?
Man, from the model itself, you can export it as a 3D model using I know for AutoCAD specifically using AutoCAD solids. That's what I think was what it. But for everything else, it's basically just entities.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Justin, quick question: do you see yourself specializing in this type of work moving forward, or are you going to probably pivot and continue with your communications degree?
Well, here's the special thing about what I'm doing. I want to pivot more to this work, but I think communication design will help me sort of get my way into a business for myself. Because we all have to market, you know? So we have to make someone do that. But if I can make it in my own image, I'm basically making the business itself like a reflection of me, which is what I want. I want a business that reflects me as a person.
Gotcha. It's a good attitude for sure, definitely.
Okay.
You have another question?
I know, right? I'm coming up with all these questions right now. So with that, okay. So I'm sorry. I'm just trying to like get a grasp of how this Tekla application works. Even if like I understand that, like you use Tekla to make this model itself, but most likely since you are like working with other people, you most likely had an idea of what you wanted before you even stepped into Tekla itself. Have you guys done like sketches and other softwares?
I see what you mean. Okay, so what I do my work from is actually from the structural drawings that the engineer gives me. I don't make those drawings. I don't make the measurements, but they give me a certain set of special things that they want in the drawing and where the beams go, but without actually making it look the way it looks here. It's just sort of representations. Like a beam on a structural engineer's plan would just be a line, a bold line. And base plates, like those you see right here, those, excuse me, are just squares in drawings. They just leave like look at detail A at structural drawing SO3, just for example.
So like their versions are like a simplified version of what you do, because you'll go
really simplified, really simple,
really simplified.
Let's see, perhaps I could find a structure drawing, guys. But yeah, it's just you go off of that and you get all your measurements from that, and you just perfect the model as much as you can, so that when you have to submit it to the engineer, they could just straight submit it to the city with approval.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry I keep asking so many questions.
That's what I'm here for. No worries.
I'll ask a question. How has like WHSAD helped you in like your college decision, and like what skills did you gain here that you ended up using long term in college?
Okay, so definitely the drafting was a big thing when I first went in, because you have to eventually end up hand drawing. That's a college requirement for most colleges. You have to hand draw your floor plans with certain tools and stuff. So since I already knew how to make a floor plan and how it should look, it really translated well on paper. But for WHSAD, they just, I think WHSAD is one of the better schools, because you get to learn more about this architecture process that you may not have learned, like, or you may not learn, and you also learn some certain skills like presentation skills. Kessner's class for me really helped me a lot with trying to learn English. I saw those eyes flare, Kessner. It helped me a lot with like having proper like English, I guess, because English is not my first language, but it did help a lot with sort of honing in on those skills.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you.
I just inflated his ego by like 3 times.
You really made us day there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a smile. Look at that.
And we all, smile is actually great. Yeah, but like I was saying, it's more so the writing skills, the presentation skills, just overall things you need as a person. They help a lot more than what I've heard from some of my friends who went to other high schools.
Justin, I know you talked about the beginning of City Tech and how much you had to read. Could you kind of go into that a little bit more? Because what was the jump like from reading at WHSAD, where you read some, but how did it compare to what you were reading at City Tech then?
Okay, so we had to write, a couple pages of writing, and you have to read quite a bit on articles that the teacher provides or the professor. And you sort of, in college, they want you to think about what you're writing and why you're writing it. They want you to really hone in on what makes that reading important in the context of the whole document. So let me give an example. So I remember they told me to do a analysis of a certain kind of media, and I did it on the Joker movie that came out a while ago. And I talked about how violence in certain medias doesn't actually equate statistically with the rise of violence we are having now. That was a couple years ago. Now it's a little different, but you just they want to teach you how to look at things in a different light in the entire text.
Cool. Good.
So I mean, Kestner's class was basically like a dummy version of that. It's sort of like it's sort of like a dumbed down version. You really do you really do get to learn more though in college. Yeah, that's it for English. Really, just English.
Well, what would you say, like, what class had the most influence on this field in general?
In this field?
I would think it would be math, but I don't know. Maybe it could be something else.
Actually, I barely do any math. I only do math to correct some mistakes that the engineers made, but I don't really do much math here. It's more so designing and making sure that it's more so a visual thing. You have to make it look good.
Okay.
But there is times where I had to do a ton of math because the engineers really do. They're only human, so they mess up in their math too. But so far, I'm too early in the job to really say because these jobs are more simple than the rest.
Okay, so you're basically like the double checker for like all the work right before, and you're like the combination of like the like whatchamacallit, like I guess a double checker, like somebody that goes and like double checks everybody's work before they hand it over to somebody else. But you're also that somebody else that ends up making their work into semi-reality.
Yeah, but when you use the program and you understand it, it calculates everything pretty quickly, so you can get real time like changes without having the model like crash on you. Because I know AutoCAD sometimes has that kind of problem where it's a little slow, but Tekla is very fast. It's very fast. It's more so if we need to take measurements or do anything with the math, we have to go on site to the place that this building is going to be built.
Yeah, I'll only imagine because it is a real spot, and you're not going to want to ballpark estimates and everything, and then have it go way out of line.
Yeah, actually, for my job,
Justin, how often do you go to the site? To the
Well,
construction site?
last time I went was a couple weeks ago for a different job. But I personally don't have to go out often because we have multiple people that go out for us. But when I do have to go out, I have to take the measurements myself, make any changes, and note down everything. Because on site is different from a drawing. There's always some sort of a difference. My mentor actually says usually we have about a 16th of an inch difference in all things, in all the beams and all the plates and everything. So that's why we have to go on site because paper is paper, and an actual building has to be erected from what we have or what we know.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. That's
Yeah.
exactly the case. That the reality when you're out there in the field and you're putting all these connections together and you're looking at the drawings, you have to have that sort of leeway. That tolerance is what they call it.
Yes, tolerance.
Yeah.
Actually, for the program, it automatically calculates tolerance to a 16th. But sometimes that could be very wrong and actually overcalculate. But, that's why you basically are, like William said, a double checker. You have to check everything before you send it out.
Yeah, totally. And also keep into consideration, that steel expands and contracts too with the seasons.
Yes, that is very true. Also, when it's being made, that's where the 16th of an inch difference comes from. Because not all steel beams will be the same. They'll be off by just a small amount that we cannot perceive.
Exactly.
Somebody had a question in the chat.
Yeah, I'm seeing.
Dimitri said, "Are you a fast-paced worker or more slow-paced? And what advice would you give to those who work slow?"
Okay, so I think Rodriguez and Cody, I'm actually quite a fast-paced worker, but you just kind of have to force yourself into it. You just kind of have to lean yourself into I want to finish this drawing. You don't have to make big differences. You could say if you have a drawing that you can do in 3 in 3 days, you want to get it down to 2.5, and basically you just want to almost don't sleep. If the job is boring for you, take a 5-minute break, but definitely don't overstay that break. And for slow workers, really, as you do more, as time progresses, you won't really notice it, but you are getting a lot faster than you originally. I used to make a drawing like this before when I started out a couple months ago. It would probably take me maybe 3 weeks. But now it only takes me a week and a half to 2. But this job is very special. I wanted to show off this job because, as you see, all the plates are different. All the beams are really weird. It's a special job. Even my mentor said this is a very special job that it's going to take more time than I'm used to. That's what I have to say for that.
Okay. Go ahead, Makai.
Okay. I was gonna ask one last question for Justin. So obviously, COVID and everything affected your college experience, but what has been your favorite thing that has happened because of COVID as a college student? And even as an employee?
Never actually thought about the good thing. Yeah, that's a great question. For college, I think when I first started out, what was easy about it is that I didn't have to go anywhere to do things, and they'd post everything that they already posted in person online, and I could keep track of that very well. Some people I know they have little difficulties, but you could definitely learn how to control that. And about job, it's definitely having my own space. You're always far away from people since you gotta stay 6 feet away, and I have basically my own office.
Okay, thank you.
I have one last question. How do you manage your time between schoolwork and your personal life?
Okay, so this goes back to what I said about college. In college, you get to choose your classes when classes have a set amount of time in every week. So you get to choose when in that week you want. So you really get to help yourself in a way. So it's easier to manage. But if you have a part-time job, it's even easier because you have even more time.
Real quick, I just wanted to remind everyone that if you ask a question, make sure you put it in the spreadsheet that was shared with everyone, so you can get your credit.
Okay.
All right, thank
I have
you.
a lot of questions. I'm gonna have to remember some of them.
If there are no other questions, or do you have any like final advice for us, especially like seniors who are going to college in the fall?
Yeah. That's well, college is not as hard as one would think. Right now, you're at a point of your lives where it's a big change, but you'll get adjusted to it very quickly. Believe me, I got adjusted in like a week. But just make sure to keep up on deadlines. Don't miss class much. Don't miss it at all. Really. Uh, you know, take down quite a lot of notes if it's something you're very interested in, and just pass all your tests with whatever grade is acceptable to you, preferably 80 plus. But just more so, learn how to pace yourself on many things. Because when you learn how to pace yourself on many things, college is just easy work.
All right, thank you. Thank you for taking time to speak to all of us today.
Yes, thank you, Justin.
Justin.
Cardio, what's going on?
You've grown and